Football is cinema. Some days it's La La Land, some other times it's Titanic, but many times football is Spartacus, blood and sand. The game has been known to be everything from beautiful to sad, to cruel to devastating, to absolutely heartbreaking. But on a few occasions, football is war. And as a fan, you cannot but love it. It's common knowledge that the biggest stages, highest stakes, and hungriest rivals always produce the most heated battles. And the Battle of Nuremberg had every single recipe right from the start. It was the knockout stages of the World Cup, so the stage could not have been bigger. And this game featured two big footballing nations, none of whom had ever won the World Cup. So the stakes were really high, and they were both hungry. It was not just a game between Portugal and the Netherlands. It was the Battle of Nuremberg, one of the most dramatic, most brutal, and most violent games of football in the history of the sport. This game broke all sorts of unpleasant records, both at the World Cup and everywhere else. And we should have seen this one coming because these two teams didn't exactly see eye to eye. In the last major tournament before the 2006 World Cup, something had started to brew. At Euro 2004, these two teams battled for a place in the final. It was a hard-fought match, and hosts Portugal went away with a slender 2-1 win. The Netherlands didn't forget, so they went into this World Cup game with a grudge in their hearts and revenge on their minds. 16 players who featured in that Euro semi-final game 2 years prior also featured in this game, so it was fresh in all of their minds. Portugal were favourites going into this game. They won all of their games in the group stage, and they had a very formidable team. A Ballon d'Or winner, and one of the best players in the world in Luis Figo, and also one of the best youngsters in world football, a 21-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo. Outside those two, they also had top players like Deco, Manish, Ricardo Carvalho, and Helder Postiga. But the Netherlands were no pushovers. They had one of the best goalkeepers in the world in Edwin van der Sar, one of the most potent attacks with players like Robin van Persie, Arjen Robben, and Dirk Kuyt, with a midfield of Sneijder, Van Bommel, Van Bronckhorst, and Van der Vaart. This game had all the quality you could imagine, and fans all over the world were eager to see goals, flair, and skills, but all we got were fireworks. And they were lit up right at the very beginning. Just 90 seconds in, we saw the first yellow card of the game, after Mark van Bommel brought Cristiano Ronaldo down just around the halfway line. That set the tone for how the whole game would go. That tackle was bad, but as bad as it wasn't even the worst tackle Ronaldo suffered in that game. The next one ended his game prematurely and sent him straight to the hospital. But before that, the Netherlands tried to steal a lead in the game. Robben had an attempt, but he was unable to keep his shot low. A few minutes later, his teammate kept his long-range free kick low, but it didn't do much to threaten Ricardo in the Portugal goal. Then, in the 8th minute, another Dutch player found himself in the referee's books for a horrendous tackle. Khalid Boularus planted a boot right into Ronaldo's thigh, nearly breaking his leg. The referee instantly showed him a yellow card. Ronaldo had to receive some medical attention for that tackle. He had his thigh wrapped, and it looked like he would be taken off, but he managed to return. It became obvious what was going on here. The Dutch players were targeting Cristiano. They knew how much of a difference maker he was, so they wanted to take him out early, and it worked. The Portuguese players noticed what the Dutchmen were doing and were enraged, so they got strapped up and ready for war. They went around targeting the players who had fouled Ronaldo and avenging their youngster. Remember, Van Bommel was the first player to bring Ronaldo down 90 seconds into the game. So in the 20th minute, Manish tackled Van Bommel to the ground close to the touchline. The Portuguese player was shown a yellow for it, but he didn't care. It was revenge, and it was sweet. But what happened to the second guy who tried to get Ronaldo injured was much worse. You won't believe it, but I guess you'll see for yourself in a second. But before then, Manish showed that he's a player who can do it all. Just 3 minutes after getting revenge for Ronaldo with a rough tackle, he went ahead to get the ultimate revenge for Portugal by putting them in front with his golazo. He received a pass from Pauleta just at the edge of the Netherlands box, skipped past one, skipped past two, and put the ball beyond the reach of Van der Sar. That goal felt super sweet for Portuguese fans, staff and players. The Dutch had more fouls, more yellow cards, more vim, and more momentum at that point in the game. But Manisha's goal meant that Portugal were now leading in the most important stat. Now, if you think the Dutch were pulling out the dark arts when the game was still goalless, it became 10 times worse after they went a goal down. The only difference was that the Portuguese were now ready to give as much as they were taking. We started to see more kicking legs than kicking balls, more badges than chances, more dueling than dribbling, just all-round more drama than we had ever seen. It's like the players were more interested in settling scores than actually changing the score. But for a short period of time, it felt like both teams had called a truce, dropped their weapons, and resorted to focusing on the game. But we were wrong, very wrong, because in the 31st minute, Costinha sent Philip Cocu flying with a sliding tackle. Yellow card, soon to be upgraded, but shortly after that, Cristiano went down once again. He had tried to finish the game, or at least get to halftime, following that horror tackle in the 7th minute. But he was struggling so much that he had to be taken off. The youngster was in tears, broken and devastated. He was very hungry and eager to impress. A premature end to the game surely wasn't in the cards for him. But he just couldn't carry on any longer despite how much he tried to, so he was replaced by Simo in the 33rd minute. Seeing their best young player get taken off due to a horror tackle seemed to anger the Portuguese more. It's one thing for the opponents to play hard, but to try and ruin the career of one of the best youngsters the country has ever produced? Yeah, that was where they drew the line. So they swore to respond, but they took their time. They let the Dutch attack first. In the 37th minute, Van Persie very nearly created magic all by himself. He got the ball in the box and quickly put 2 Portuguese players on their backside, but his shot should have been curled instead of poked. That was the closest the Dutch had come to getting on the score sheet that night. But they'll come even closer soon. Anyway, all the tackles, face-offs and injuries in the first half culminated in a little coming together in the 39th minute. Costinha, who was already on a yellow card, fouled Andre Oye just around the centre circle, and the players quickly gathered around the referee. The Dutchmen were trying to get the referee to send Costinha off, while the Portuguese were trying to make sure that didn't happen. Well, Costinha remained on the pitch, but not for very long. In the 43rd minute, Portugal's Nuno Valente planted a foot in Robben's chest in the 18-yard box. That was the clearest penalty and sending-off combo, but Valente and Portugal were saved by the flag. There was an offside in the build-up, so everything else that happened afterward didn't matter. At this point, it was so obvious we were going to see a red card or two in this game. It was now a matter of when the first one would come. Soon, very soon, but before then, both sides had genuine attempts on goal. Schneider's 44th minute free kick went high over the bar, but Pauleta's shot from inside the box forced a great save from Van der Sar. If you think that was how the half ended, you're absolutely wrong. It had one more plot twist for us. In additional time of the first half, Costinha had a brain fart. At the centre of the pitch, with no real threat, he stuck his arm out and handled the ball. It felt like he forgot that he was already on a yellow card. The referee had no other option than to show him a second yellow and send him down the tunnel earlier than the rest of the team. Portugal still had the advantage, but with the Netherlands now having the numerical advantage, the game was now looking very different. Felipe Scolari knew that he had to re-strategize and come up with a new plan for the second half to keep Portugal's lead. But this new plan was less total football, more total recall. In the 49th minute, Philip Cocu had an incredible chance for an equaliser. The midfielder found himself in a world of space in the box after a failed bicycle kick by a teammate. The ball deflected off a Portugal defender and presented itself to Cocu. The man knew exactly what he had to do. He volleyed the ball one time with his right foot, and the keeper could do nothing but watch. But with the keeper lost, the woodwork came to the rescue. The ball slammed hard against the crossbar very quickly. That right there was the chance of the game so far, but there was a lot more to come. More chances, more tackles, more drama, and more bookings. A lot more. In fact, the next one came the very next minute. Petty pulled Van Bommel down in the midfield, and he was shown a yellow card for stopping an attack. Van Bommel quickly got to his feet and nearly went straight to score the equaliser. He tried a shot from about 30 yards out, which forced Ricardo to push the ball out for a corner. Since they were coming closer with long-range efforts, the players decided to try it a few more times. There was an attempt from the Dutch in the 53rd minute, but it was off target. The next minute, Figo tried his luck from outside the box, but Van der Sar handled it pretty easily. Maniche was the next man to shoot from outside the box. It was more threatening than the last, but Van der Sar saved once again. Even more threatening was the next long-range effort from the Netherlands in the 58th minute. It had the Portugal goalkeeper scrambling to make a save. The flurry of long-range efforts was only a break in transmission. Soon we were back to regularly scheduled programming of rash tackles, boost-ups, and bookings. Deco was brought down by Van Bronckhorst outside the Netherlands box in the 59th minute, and that tackle produced more than a yellow card. It led to a fight. Captain Figo, who was very unhappy about that tackle to one of his best players, showed his displeasure. He faced off with Van Bommel and headbutted him. He was shown a yellow card for that, but he didn't even care. And you know who else didn't care? Portugal coach Felipe Scolari. Nah, scratch that, he did not care. He actually loved it. When asked about the headbutt, he said, "Jesus Christ may be able to turn the other cheek, but Luis Figo isn't Jesus Christ." Yeah, that was a crazy statement, but I mean, this was a very crazy game. And it wasn't even over yet. In fact, you could say it was just now nearing boiling point. In the 60th minute, Simão very nearly put Portugal 2-0 up with his free kick, but his shot was just off target. Then in the 63rd minute, we saw the second red card of the night. Boulahrouz, who had gotten his first caution for injuring Ronaldo in the 7th minute, was booked again for an elbow to Figo's face just around the halfway line. Some say it wasn't intentional, but looking at how the game had gone, it was hard to believe that it wasn't. Boulahrouz's sending off led to a little melee on the sidelines. There was some pushing and shoving between players and staff from either side. Some even had to be held back. After all that, the game finally resumed with the Netherlands still knocking and seeking an equaliser. Kite tried a shot from long range in the 68th minute, which was deflected but still saved easily by the keeper. Then, in the 71st minute, Sneijder tried a volley from the edge of the box, but it was blocked by an unwavering Portuguese defence. 2 minutes later, Deco, who was on the receiving end of a bad tackle a few minutes ago, turned offender. He slid into Heitinga from behind and sent him flying and rolling. This quickly led to another brawl on the pitch. Sneijder pushed Petit to the ground, and that led to some back and forth between players from both teams, which lasted for minutes. The result? Yellow cards to Sneijder and Van der Vaart. To show you how tense this game was, Portugal had put the ball out of play to allow a player receive medical attention. And as you know, fair play says that the Netherlands should have given the ball back to Portugal after the resumption of play, but they didn't. This was not a fair play game at all. And it only gets more chaotic from here on. In the 75th minute, Ricardo was shown a yellow card for time wasting. And a minute later, Valente joined his keeper in the books for a foul on Van Persie on the halfway line. In the 78th minute, Deco was shown another yellow card for delaying a quick restart, and that was it. He was off. That was the 15th yellow and the third red card of the game. It was absolutely crazy. But somehow, that still wasn't all. We started at 11v11, but we were now down to 9v10. Still, the referee wasn't done brandishing his red card. Anyway, now, with numerical advantage once again, the Netherlands tried to get their equaliser. And everyone who was watching thought that Kite would get it when he found himself one-on-one with Ricardo. He was onside, so all he needed to do was find the back of the net, but Ricardo came out early and played saviour with a huge save. but he hurt himself in the process. He was down for some time, but he was not about to leave his teammates in the heat of battle. He was determined to see the game through, so he kept on. In the 88th minute, it was Van der Sar who was getting hurt on the other end. Simo ran into the goalkeeper who had come out to claim the ball, but the Dutch captain wasn't down for long. He knew his team desperately needed an equaliser and time was not on their side, so he played on. Kite came close to getting that equaliser in the 89th minute with an acrobatic shot from outside the box, but Ricardo saved. At this point, it became clear that it just wasn't going to be the Netherlands' night. And hope and desperation quickly turned into despair and frustration, which was evidenced in the footnote of the game. Van Bronckhorst's 95th minute silly tackle, which saw the referee show him a second yellow card, the fourth red card of the night. Just before the final whistle went, the camera panned to 3 of the 4 players who were sent off, Boeleroos, Van Bronckhorst and Deco, sitting together. A commentator, Gary Bloom, referred to it as the bad boys' corner.
It's the bad boys' corner.
But in truth, the entire game felt like a bad boys game. The game had everyone in their feelings, including the FIFA president. Sepp Blatter criticized the referee, saying he should have shown a yellow card to himself for that officiating. There were 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards shown in that game, setting a new record for cards shown in a single game at the World Cup or any FIFA-administered international tournament. 16 years later, that record was broken in another really violent World Cup game, once again featuring the Netherlands. Which of these 2 games was more violent? Tell me in the comments. But before you judge, first go and watch this video of the Battle of Lusail.